The story begins, and we see a boat is floating in the Caribbean Sea where a family is enjoying their vacation. On the boat are Tom, his wife Julia, and their two children, Cassie and Ben. Cassie, wearing headphones, is listening to music while Tom is teaching his son how to fish. Meanwhile, Julia decides to go swimming and dives into the water. She swims quite far from the boat when suddenly she feels something pulling her under. She calls out to Tom for help, but her voice doesn't reach him and she starts drowning. On the boat, Tom notices that the device on board stops working. Just then, he sees Julia struggling in the water. He quickly steers the boat closer to her and dives into the water to save her. He manages to bring her back onto the boat, but everyone is visibly shaken. John scolds her, "I told you not to go too far from the boat." Later that evening, the family gathers to celebrate Ben's 13th birthday. He receives lots of gifts and they even take a family photo together. During this time, Cassie gets a video call from her boyfriend, Adam. He asks how her family trip is going. Cassie tells him she's feeling bored. Adam then mentions that the weather has suddenly turned bad where he is, with lightning flashing fiercely across the sky. Before he can say more, the call drops due to a network outage. Cassie shares this with her dad, and just then they notice movement in the water. The family looks around and sees a pod of whales surrounding the boat. Tom remarks, "This is likely a sign of an incoming storm. Whales and dolphins usually behave this way when they can't sense the waves properly." Suddenly, a massive whale crashes into the lower part of the boat. Concerned, Tom decides to check for any damage and dives into the water. When he returns, he has an injury on his shoulder. Julia asks, "What happened?" Tom replies, "I'm not sure. Something hit me when I turned around. But the worst news is that our yacht is damaged, and fixing it isn't possible. We'll need to call for help." Julia stitches Tom's wound, as she is a doctor. After that, Cassie tries calling for help using her phone, but the network is completely down. Julia then attempts to contact someone via the radio, but all her efforts fail. This leaves Tom feeling deeply frustrated. He doesn't know how to get his family back home safely. Suddenly, they receive a signal indicating something is approaching. When they step outside to investigate, they see an object falling from the sky. It looks like a meteorite. Tom desperately tries to steer the boat, but then another asteroid crashes dangerously close to them. They narrowly escape harm. Upon closer observation, they realize that these aren't meteors but satellites falling from the sky for some unknown reason. Before they can make sense of what's happening, strong winds begin to blow, and the sea becomes violently turbulent. Panicked, they rush inside the boat to gather supplies. Tom hands everyone life jackets, but then things take a terrifying turn. Everyone starts feeling dizzy. Julia's nose begins to bleed, and the storm grows so intense that, one by one, they all lose consciousness. The next morning, when they regain consciousness, Julia looks around and sees that her entire family is safe, but their boat is completely wrecked. It is filled with fish and heaps of mud. Tom is baffled and doesn't know what to make of the situation. As they step outside to get a better look, they are shocked to see that the entire scenery has changed. The vast ocean they were in has disappeared, replaced by an enormous desert. Tom tries to make sense of the situation using a map and a compass. After some time, he discovers that the Earth's poles have shifted direction. The North Pole has become the South, and the South Pole is now the North. This drastic change has caused the ocean's water to shift entirely to the other side of the planet. He realizes that this catastrophic change must have led to the deaths of countless people. Hearing this, Cassie starts crying because she is worried about Adam. The family realizes they are now trapped in this desert as well. Julia begins gathering all the food they have left, while Tom continues trying to contact someone through the radio. Meanwhile, Ben climbs a nearby hill and ties balloons to release them into the air, hoping someone nearby might spot them. After some time, a voice crackles through the radio. A man introduces himself, saying, "My name is Nob, and I'm the captain of a small submarine." Tom immediately responds, "We need your help." But Nob replies, "I can't help you. I'm stuck here just like you." Tom then asks, "What do you think happened?" Nob explains, "This happened because of the shifting poles. Based on my calculations, the poles will return to their original positions in about a week. But when that happens, the waves this time will be far more dangerous than before." Julia then sends both her children to pack their belongings. Tom asks Nob, "How many people can your submarine accommodate?" Nob responds, "One of my crew members is dead, so now only 3 people can fit inside." Tom says, "All right, then share your location with me so I can bring my kids to the submarine." Julia also requests the captain to help save her children, and after some consideration, the captain agrees and gives them his coordinates. Tom checks the coordinates and says, "We should be able to reach you in about 3 days." Tom tells his wife that they will leave tomorrow morning because saving their children is their top priority. Therefore, they don't tell the children that there is only space for 2 people in the submarine. The family spends the night in the boat, and in the morning, Julia starts gathering all the necessary food and supplies. While she's packing, Tom notices a strange-looking man approaching the boat, accompanied by a dog. Tom climbs down from the boat, carrying water to offer help. When he hands the man the water, the stranger gulps it all down in one go. Tom tries to communicate, but the man speaks in a language Tom cannot understand. Suddenly, the man attacks Tom, stabbing him to death. Julia, standing nearby, watches in horror but is unable to save him. The man then turns his attention to Julia, who runs back to the boat. She quickly hides both kids and hands a flare gun to Casey, telling her to use it if needed. Julia then hides herself as well. When the man enters the boat, he discovers a stockpile of food and starts devouring it like a wild animal. Meanwhile, Julia jumps off the boat with a knife, but the man's dog attacks her. She manages to kill the dog and climbs up on the other side to re-enter the boat. As she enters, the man attacks her again. She fights to defend herself, but she's unable to. That moment, Casey uses the flare gun on him, starting a fire inside the boat. Despite the fire, the 3 of them manage to escape the boat with the essential supplies. Ben starts crying after seeing his father's lifeless body. Meanwhile, Julia notices that the crazed man is still alive and coming after them again. Seeing him approach, she grabs her children and they run as fast as they can. Moments later, their boat explodes with a loud blast. The family finds a safe spot and stops to rest for a while, but Ben is blaming himself for his father's death. He thinks the crazy man must have come because of the balloons he had released. Julia tries to comfort him, telling him to stop blaming himself. But their respite is short-lived as they see the man approaching again. They quickly start running once more, managing to escape for a while. But soon, Julia realizes that Ben is suffering from dehydration, and they've run out of water. They spot a plane which seems to have crashed in the storm. They run toward it and see that there's no one around. As evening approaches, Julia hides inside the plane with her children. She gives her kids some food and sits quietly, remembering her late husband. As night falls, they all try to sleep inside the plane. In the middle of the night, Cassie wakes up and steps outside to use the bathroom. While she's outside, the crazed man who had been chasing them suddenly appears and moves toward her to attack. But Julia suddenly attacks him with a knife, stabbing him repeatedly until he dies on the spot. Having avenged her husband's death, Julia feels a sense of relief and justice. The next morning, when they step out of the plane, they notice that the man's body is covered with many wounds, which seem to be signs of an attack by a wild animal. They continue heading toward the submarine. Along the way, Ben, who is extremely thirsty, begins drinking water from a muddy puddle. Julia stops him immediately, warning that drinking it could make him sick. To protect themselves from the scorching sun and strong winds, they make use of some garbage scattered nearby. Julia gives Ben an injection to help with his dehydration, and they construct a makeshift shelter to rest in. As both children fall asleep, Julia hears a strange sound. She steps outside and sees something moving rapidly toward them. Julia, along with her children, starts running away from the approaching threat. They eventually reach a ship where some people are taking food supplies from containers. When the people see Julia and the kids approaching, they quickly hide inside the containers and lock themselves inside. A large number of crabs are chasing them, so the 3 of them climb on top of the containers to escape, but Julia gets injured in the process. Meanwhile, the people who were hiding inside the containers are attacked by the crabs, and they are killed. The next morning, a strong, dust-filled storm begins to blow. Julia notices that there are many weapons around and they collect them. Ben starts reloading a gun while Julia treats her wound by applying gunpowder and burning it to prevent infection. They also find water and other essential supplies. Julia comes across a walkie-talkie and uses it to contact the submarine's captain. He asks, "Where are you?" Julia explains, "We've become lost somewhere in this desert, and our map is gone, so it's hard to figure out the direction." The captain replies, "I was also attacked by those creatures, and my condition is critical. You all need to hurry because the sea is coming back." Then he fires his flare gun into the air, which Ben notices. Now they know the location of the submarine, and they all head in that direction. After walking for a while, they spot the submarine, but to reach it, they must cross large, deep ravines. As they move forward, rocks suddenly start falling from above. Julia pushes her children to the other side to protect them, while she herself gets stuck on this side of the trench. She tells Cassie, "You need to go to the submarine with your brother. I'll try to get out of here." Though the children don't want to leave her behind, they reluctantly move forward after Julia repeatedly urges them. When they finally reach the submarine, they find Nob, who is severely injured. He says, "I think my time is up." So now there's space for 3 people in the submarine. Hearing this, Cassie decides to go back and bring her mother. She goes back to the ravine where Julia is still fighting to stay alive, protecting herself from the danger. Cassie helps Julia out by offering her hand, and together they escape the trench. Now the whole group gathers near the submarine. Just as the creatures close in to attack, they manage to get inside and lock themselves in. Within a few moments, they see a massive wave coming from the ocean, indicating that the sea has returned to its original place. Everyone quickly secures themselves, and as the waves hit the submarine, they all lose consciousness. When they regain consciousness, Julia sees that everything has calmed down and the submarine has reached the shore. When they step out, they see that the city in front of them has been reduced to ruins, completely destroyed by the storm. But fortunately, they are alive. And with that, the story comes to an end. So friends, be sure to share your thoughts about the story in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. And if you really enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon. See you in the next video. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye for now.